What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a couple weeks since we had a video and this piece is why. If you guys have been following along, you know we've been trying to make the adapter for the transmission to use the Ford bell housing with the GTR transmission. This is that adapter. I have some footage from last week which I'll throw in here if there's anything good. Everything went wrong. First step of this is figuring out exactly where we need to cut, because that face in there, this surface right here, is the very front surface where we need to mount to, which means the bell housing needs to be cut behind that, but obviously not too far because we want to leave as much of it as possible just for strength. Now if you look in the side, typically this is where the shift fork goes. I don't know if you guys can see that. Basically that surface sits like right about here, right above this line. So I think if we just cut it at this ridge right here, it'll retain enough strength for what we need, but still be behind that meeting surface. The only spots I'm a little worried about right now is right in here. So the ridge kind of lines up somewhere down there, but you can see the actual casing of the transmission is down there. Over here, you know, that ridge still lines up in the same place, but the casing actually comes up a little bit farther. But I think if you cut into that, that's open casing. If it is so, on that side, we may need to go up a little bit just to make sure we don't cut into the casing, because that's gonna be incredibly hard to repair, and would rather just not deal with that. Just as I was about to film the clip of cutting the bell housing, we got our new 3D printer in. So I'll set that up later and we'll get printing on it, because I do need to cut this bell housing, and I would like to do that before it's dark outside. It's like the middle of the day, so we have plenty of light. But if I start playing with this, it's gonna take a long time. So I've cut all the way around. You can see little bits of light. Now we just have to figure out how to cut down that way to break all of these webbing supports. So I gotta figure that out, because I don't know if I can get the angle grinder all the way down in there. So we may have to use the Sawzall. I don't know, I'll figure something out and come back whenever I'm done. Bell housing is finally cut. I had to cut it off in sections, but we're good. Got all these shaved down. We'll clean it up eventually, but right now, this surface is the highest surface up that we have, which is perfect. I didn't realize that this bearing sticks up, so the new piece that we print, even mock-up, needs to have a cutout at least for that. This stuff doesn't really matter too much, but at least needs to have that so it'll sit flush. And just like every other project, it took way too long. It is actually dark outside. That window on the left doesn't have a cover on it. It's dark. Now, depending on what footage I may or may not have just put in there, you know, we were able to cut the bell housing, so that's done. We'll clean it up, but this is cut, so that's good. We have the other bell housing, which the adapter will go onto. And then the problem we were having last week was the 3D printer broke, the one we have. I was also able to get a new one. I didn't film any of this, but it took me twice as long to fix that one. So the other one just broke. The new one I got, I had to upgrade, and then I had to put the software on it, and that wasn't working, and so I had to buy a new motherboard for it. A whole bunch of stuff went wrong, took about a week. Just got this done today, and even still, it's not perfect. You guys can actually see the little honeycomb, kind of. It's not really a honeycomb, more like triangles. That's the structure on the inside of a lot of our prints. It stopped like halfway through, so that's why it looks like that. But this week we're here with a somewhat working model. Again, we'll have to reprint it and get it thicker and get some final models done to actually get the transmission in the car, because I don't think this will actually allow us to put it in the car. I'm gonna try to bolt the two pieces together and see how that goes. First thing we have to do is actually slide, actually I need to figure out which way this goes. Put these bolts through here, because the GTR bell housing is actually a little bit wider than the mounting holes. So we'll have to slide these into here, then bolt the bolt the GTR piece on this side and then kind of set it down and then screw these in, because there's just no room to slide these in once this is bolted to that piece. So good news and bad news. Good news, all these holes line up, so that's pretty cool. I didn't bolt these in. I seem to have misplaced some bolts. It also lines up with the bell housing perfectly, so all the holes are fine. The only problem is because this is so thin, these bolts are sticking out, so when you try to put them together, these kind of get stuck on some of the bell housing and don't allow you to rotate it properly. So what I'm gonna do is take some more official measurements, redo the model for this, let it print fully, and then we'll have a piece we can actually bolt these bell housings together. That is the goal for this video, just to get these two pieces together. If we can put the transmission on it and get it in the car, that would be amazing. But with just the print time that this thing is gonna take, I think the estimate for it, if it were to finish fully, was like 36 hours or something like that. But this is a pretty exciting step, I don't know. Every time we create something new and it just like works and fits and bolts on properly, super exciting. Anyways, I'm gonna get measuring, update the 3D model, and come back when we have the new piece. Finally, after many, many days, we have a full, complete adapter for the transmission. This is about 1 inch thick, so made out of aluminum. That's gonna give us plenty of strength. This model, actually, I forgot to countersink the holes, so there's a gap between the bell housing and the thing, but that's fine, because that won't be like that in the final model. So everything works, it fits together, the sizes are perfect, all the holes align. The biggest thing is once this is on the transmission and I can mount the bell housing to the engine, even if the front and back distances aren't right, we can still measure side to side, which is perfect because that we can see where the transfer case will line up with the front diff, which opens up so many more things for us to do to the front. Real quick, before I bolt up the transmission, one cool thing I just found, so all this stuff is cool, it lines up, but actually the upper hole where the shift, the main shift linkage comes through right there at the top, it actually lines up with this kind of vent thing. I'm not really sure what this hole is here for, but it lines up pretty much with that. So if we countersink some holes and make a cool design with, there's supposed to be a cover over that because obviously that leads to the inside of the transmission. All I really have to do is just cut out this window, and I think we can get away with just enough space for that. So that's pretty cool that that lines up where it does. And just like that, we have a full GTR transmission with a Ford 302 bell housing. Obviously we still have the little gap here, which means the input shaft is sitting behind the front face of this. Now, most of the time you would have the input shaft stick a little bit past it. I've done the measurements, we don't need that because the throwout bearing sits about 1/2 inch behind where the face of the bell housing mounts to the back of the block. The original T5 transmission had it sticking out about 1/2 inch past that because that throwout bearing in the pocket behind the throwout bearing is pretty deep. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as the input shaft that's inside the pilot bearing is the same depth as the pilot bearing, there's no need to have any of the input shaft past that in the little weird pocket that's behind it. I'll have to take the throwout bearing. We're gonna put a new pilot bearing, in the motor, so I'll take it out and show you the weird space that's behind it. There's no need for it to go all the way in there. So right now the input shaft is sitting about 5/16 of an inch behind the front face of the bell housing, and the head of the bolt plus the washers that are on them, I think is gonna end up being about that. So worst case, we have to take, you know, 1/8 or 1/16 off that plate. I'm fine with that. We will end up doing a teardown of that transmission because I do wanna flush it out. The fluid that came out was pretty clean, but when I took it off, the gear set is actually held together by this center plate right here. So there's this casing, there's a back casing, and then there's a center plate. The whole gear set is held with just this center plate. There's a couple main bearings in there that hold the whole gear set and the input shafts and output shafts together. When I was taking the whole transmission apart, I took the front casing off, and that one came with it, and so the seal broke between that plate and the back housing. So I have to at least take it apart to reseal that. I don't know what's involved with that, but it's not bad to take that stuff apart and go through it. And honestly, also kind of see the inside of the transfer case and see the condition of that. That has its own fluid, I think separate from the transmission, so we'll be able to drain that and see if any of the clutch packs in there have been like worn down or got like overheated. But that'll come in a later episode. I'm sure we'll do a full transmission tear down, maybe the same episode we put this in the car, which will be soon. So yeah, look out for that. I think that's gonna do it for this episode. Anybody who's been following along this whole project, I really appreciate you guys watching. We're getting close. I promise there's gonna be some stuff happening. It's hard to see these things just sit and sit, but there's gonna be some big progress made with that transmission going in. We do already have the front kind of together, so that's been a big step. But hopefully you guys can see that some of these parts are actually getting made. Our CNC should be here in about 2 or 3 weeks, so we'll be able to start making some parts and get this thing becoming an actual full roller. It'll roll by itself right now. I fixed this wheel. I know you guys saw me pull it out with a jack. I did fix some of the stuff on this wheel and was able to roll it out again by itself. But again, it's a little sketchy with just some of those plastic 3D printed parts in there. But things are coming along. I really appreciate you guys watching. Go follow me on Instagram. I'll have it down in the description. You guys will probably get a post like sometimes like a week early, just depending on what it is. Sometimes there's a little bit more information on there. But mostly if you guys just want to see things early, that's normally where I post stuff. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one.